Yo guys, what is up? I'm Kodat, and in this video I'll be teaching you the scripting basics for Unity. So without further ado, let's get straight into this. Alright, so to start it off, we're not even going to be using anything in the scene. So to be honest, I'm just going to delete the car right here and increase the size of the console. I'll just put it up here because we're really going to be focusing on this. So first things first, to actually create a script, you're going to want to go to your assets, and we're going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this folder scripts. Alright, it's going to hold all of our scripts that we have, and so I'm going to create a C# script. You can call the script whatever you want. I'm just going to be calling it code. Why not? It's literally just code. So with this new file, this C# script, double clicking it should send you to it could pop up with this tab. You're just going to choose whatever you use to edit your code. I use Visual Studio Code, so I'm going to use Always, and it should launch up your scripting program. Starting off with the first thing, is that, there's a lot of these things, right? This might be seeming a little overwhelming. There's these things called classes and methods. I won't be going over them in this video because they're not as important right now as it's just the basics, but later on in another video we'll be going over these things. So just briefly, there's comments up here that tell you what these do. Comments are just lines in your code that don't actually execute. So if you type 2 backslashes, you can type whatever you want and it won't be considered code. Alright, just a little tip. So this says start is called before the first frame update. So basically when you run your program, this is what's going to happen in the beginning. These are the first things to happen. So we're going to be writing all our code in this start function. First thing I'm going to teach is Debug.Log. If you type Debug.Log, let's just close this out. If you just type Debug.Log, open bracket, close bracket, add a semicolon at the end, you can type whatever you want. Let's say we're going to type hello world. What this line of code does, essentially, it'll print in the console hello world. What does this mean? Basically right here, saving the scripts in the console right here, it'll say hello world. Why? Because again, the start function is called when you start the program, so it'll do whatever code's written here. And Debug.Log means write whatever's in this. Alright, so if we save and then we run, nothing actually happens. Why? It's because this file, this script, is not attached to anything. You have to attach it to something. So really quickly here, I can just create a cube, and we can just call this cube player for now. Like, it doesn't even matter what we named it. We just take our script, we can either drag it onto the player, or we can drag it straight into the inspector right here, right? Let go, and the script's added. So now, when we run this, you can see that it says hello world. You don't have to worry about the 134534 and then Unity.debug, you don't have to really care about that. Alright, down here it also tells you where it was located. So if you click on this, it sends you straight to the line of the exact script that said this. So you guys can mess around with this, but essentially now we can just write a whole story. One day there was a man who found a dog and took care of it. Alright, we save that using Control S, and then we play, and you see it prints, right? So now there's different clear settings as well, so you can clear when you click play, so it'll clear this whole thing and redo it, or you can just never clear it and it'll just continue printing continue printing over and over again. I like to clear on play as well as clear on build. So let's keep going. So that is Debug.Log. So we can actually see what we're doing. So now I want to move on to variables. What are variables? Well, variables are just a word or a phrase, something that'll hold information that you can use for information, right? So in math, for example, if we say 5 plus x equals 10, x would equal 5 because that makes the equation true, right? So x is a variable. X is the thing that's holding the value of 10. So the same thing we can do for scripting. Let's write a quick variable. We'll just say int our integer equals 5. What is this doing, okay? So it's basically setting a variable. So now whenever I type our integer is 5. Let's say we're saying how many people are in a party. People in party, alright? The amount of people in the party, and let's say there's 10 people in the party, okay? We can now say there are, and then you have to use, outside the quotes, you want to use a plus. This will basically, it won't add. It's not like adding. Like how would I add text to a number, right? That doesn't make sense because text isn't in math, right? But it's just basically concatenation, which means I'm gonna, add that in text. So if I say there are plus people in party plus in the party, what this will say is it'll say there are, and then it'll say 10, alright? Because it's gonna add people of party into here, so it'll basically print. So I can just I can use my comments to say this will print there are 10 in the party. But we should probably say people, right? Think about what it's gonna print, helps you make sense. So now let's say there are 10 people in the party. So we can use Control S to save, go back to here, and click play. And you can see it says there are 10 people in the party. So you can change this to 5, save it, and print there are 5 people in the party. Okay? So one reason why you want to use variables is if you're going to use the same number a lot of times, right? If I say debug.log, there are, 10 people in the party multiple times, I can just have this variable that holds, how many people are in the party, right? So another reason which I will go into more depth, in later, is if I'm ever changing this value, alright? Because if I say there are 10 people in the party, and I want to track how many people are in the party, I want to use a variable because, if I want to subtract one person from the party, I'd want to have a variable that'll hold that same information forever. Which, we got the name of the variable, which is whatever you want to name it, the value of the variable, which is 5, equal sign, which is setting, people in party to 5. What is int? Well, you guys know what integers are, I suppose, I hope. Well, it's basically just telling you what is the type of variable. What is the data type? Alright, the data type is what we call it. And so there's multiple. There are integers. There are integers, which use int. Booleans, which use bool. Floats, which use float. Strings, which use string. Things like this. Alright? These are probably the 4 main ones you're going to use. So what is an int? Int is just integer again, right? So integer is just any whole number. So anywhere from -infinity to infinity, that's a whole number. So int could equal 75413, but it can't equal 75413.2. Alright? Remember, always add semicolons after your line's done. Right? Booleans are just true or false. That's literally it. It's either true or false. This is the easiest one to know. True or false. Floats are decimal values, alright? 75413.2. Alright? Now one thing about floats is you can set it to 75413, but it'll automatically convert it to 0.0. Alright? And then string, it's literally just words. So string would be hello, and it's wrapped in, these quotation marks. Right? Some other ones that exist are character, which is just char, and these are wrapped in single quotes, and it's just one character. So it's either A, B, C, whatever it is. So there's also doubles, which is literally just a float but bigger. Okay, so if you say float, right, there's a certain extent at which you can make the decimals. Like you can't have it have 100 decimal points. All right. So a double will just allow you to have more decimal points. All right. But for now, we'll just use int, bool, float, and string the most. So yeah, that's basically it for data types. Now we can use these data types to actually construct, sentences and such. But I want to first go over operators, which is literally just, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So let's use our variables, our variable knowledge. So you say int, right, because this is going to be an integer, first num, standing for first number, equals, 5. And then int second num equals 10. If we do Debug.Log, first num plus second num, what do you think I'll print? Well, let's just see. We'll save it, Control S. We'll play. Prints 15. Why? Because 5 plus 10 is 15. Okay. Now if we do first num minus second num, what do you think will happen? What's 5 minus 10? Negative 5. So what will it print? Negative 5. Multiplication, you use this asterisk, which is just shift 8. Alright. And 5 times 550. And then divide, you just use the slash, which is, I forgot to save, Control S. See, it doesn't work properly if you don't save it. So you also remember to save it. 0. Now, why did it say 0? Because I know 5 over 10 is 0.5. There's something called integer division. Alright, this is very simple, very basic. If you're dividing an integer by an integer, it'll take off the decimal point. So if we do 5 divided by 10, in reality, this is 0.5. But since 5 and 10 are both integers, it'll drop the decimal place. No matter, even if it's 0.9, it'll just drop it. So it's literally just deleting the decimal point, which makes it 0. So if I made this 12 over 10, what's 12 over 10? Well, that's just 1.2. But since it's integer division, it'll drop the 0.2, and it'll just be 1. So we can test this out right now. It should print 1, which you'll see right here. There we go. Alright, so to work around this, all you have to do is just make at least one of the variables a double or a float. So I'll say float first num equals 12. And I see it prints 1.2. Alright. So that's basically it for operators. And we'll move on to actually constructing your own sentence with variables. Alright guys, so now if you all have ever played Mad Libs, we're gonna make something kind of like that using variables. So if you Debug.Log, you can make any crazy story you want, right? I'll just say for now, there was a man who ate 5 pizzas and fell asleep shortly after, only to find himself in Paris the next day. So with this sentence, think about what we can make the actual person who's playing the game choose, like how many pizzas he ate or what food they actually ate. So I'm going to change 5 pizzas and pears. So we're going to have, you know, a string variable. First, we're going to have an int variable called food num, which is how much food they ate. We'll just set it to 1 for now. We're going to have, because you can't eat 0.5 of a food, right? You can't eat 6.5 strawberries. I mean, you can, but we'll leave it at integers for now. So they eat whole foods, you know. If you want, you could make it float to say, oh, they ate 6.293 apples, to make it something silly like that. But next thing, we have a string variable for the actual food type, and we'll say it's, you know, no apples. I don't like apples. We'll say ice cream. And then for the last thing, the location, what do you think the data type would be? If you guess string, you would be correct. String location equals the moon. Alright, so now what we can do is fill it in. So we say, we close the quotes here and just do plus food num plus open the quotes again, and it continues, right? But remember, you want to add spaces after and before, so that, you know, it's not, this number is not glued next to these two. You know, pizzas, right? We also want to add that. So we're going to do plus space plus food type plus open quote. Because if we don't have this space in here, you know, I'll just show you. You know, found itself in plus, you know, close quotes plus location plus open quotes. And if we save this, it'll look good for the most part, but there's one issue. There's a man who ate 1 ice cream. You guys can see right here in the console. Not sure if I can make the text any bigger, but it says there was a man who ate 1 ice cream and fell asleep shortly after, only to find himself in the moon the next day. But 1 and ice cream, you can see the 1 and ice, there's no space between, which is why you have to add the space manually. So we're gonna add the space, and now if we save it and replay it, perfect settings. And now we can say, okay, we'll say food num. Right now we can make food num, let's say 5, and we say food num, oh no, food num. Now we're setting food num, so you can change variables, alright? You can change their location, you can change their values, not like you keep it once, alright? So we're gonna set food num equal to, you know, itself minus 1. So we're subtracting 1 from food num and then setting food num to that. So food num minus 1 will be 4. So now food num will equal 4. Alright? And now we're saying Debug.Log. The man ate 1 of his plus food type plus. So now he only has plus food num plus food type. I mean plus space, sorry. Plus space plus food type. So what will this do? Well, the man ate 1 of his ice cream. So now he only has 4 ice cream because we subtracted 1 right here. Alright, so you can see how variables are getting into use now because we can change the values of variables. Alright, and they're going to be especially helpful when the player actually inputs something. So you can see there was a man who ate 5 ice cream and fell asleep shortly after, only to find himself in the moon the next day. The man ate 1 of his ice cream, so now he only has 4 ice cream. Right? You know, there's still little issues, right, with it's not plural, it's not saying ice creams, but that's besides the point for now. As we've just covered the basics of Unity scripting. So I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, like, subscribe, and share. and I'll see you all in the next one.